I'd like to discuss with you the concept of verticality. Now, you've heard of verticality as jumping straight up in the air to block a shot. But there's some concepts around that if you understand and if you pass this on to your teammates, will create a better played game and a much safer game for your opponents. I have found that in 23 years, the one concept that if everybody understood that would make the league safer is verticality. And so I want to explain it like this. Jumping straight up doesn't mean that your body is erect and the hands are straight up to the air. It means that you got to that position before the offensive player's final step of his move. Not that you got to the position after they were mid-stride or airborne, but you got to that position prior to the final step of the offensive player's move. Now, if you got to that position prior to their final step, then at that point you own that ground and you own everything to the ceiling, and that's what's called verticality. So verticality involves the timing of when you get there. Now, if you get there in that time frame that I just mentioned, then you are entitled to everything to the ceiling, which means you can not only jump straight up and block the shot, you can jump straight up and there could be tons of contact. The offensive player could get hit on the arm, the head, the elbow, everything. And it's a no call because you got to that spot before their final step and you own it to the ceiling. So verticality isn't just about jumping straight up and blocking shots, it's about jumping straight up and preventing the player from scoring, which might mean that when their contact comes into you, the player who had established position and went vertical, that contact is legal. You see, a lot of players aren't familiar with the concept that a foul is barely determined by contact. 80% of the definitions of a foul are about position and who got there first. So again, if you get there first and you establish that, you own it to the ceiling. So all that contact is legal, even if you hit their arm, their head, their elbow. It's all legal if you got there first. And again, because it's this important, first doesn't mean you get there before the contact. First means you get there before the final step of their move or shot. If you get there with that timing, you own it, and you own it to the ceiling, and that's called verticality. Now, that being said, I need to discuss with you the danger of a player who doesn't understand verticality. Now, the player is typically a soccer or baseball or a different sport athlete that comes into basketball. They're very competitive, they're wonderful people, and they become good over time. But oftentimes they don't understand the verticality concept of having to get there first before the offensive player's final step. And so what they do is they'll get there late, and then the offensive player is committed to this move, and here comes a player out of nowhere, and in essence that's sort of an undercut. Or if it occurs from the side, or worse, from behind, it can be a very, very dangerous play. So we not only want players to understand verticality, but we want players to not make the play if they're not in front. And you see this in the NBA. If a player is not in front of a player who's driving or striding to the hoop, they don't keep pursuing them. They stop, respect that they're beat, and they get beat. The player scores and they get beat. Or they stop pursuing them, and here comes help side defense. So good players, sound players, and safe players respect that they can't make that play. They're not able to get in front of the player on their final step of their offensive shot or drive. And because they can't do that, they don't try. They stop trying, and they either get beat or they get help side help on defense. And that's what creates a safe game. So it's important that players understand the verticality concept, because if they do, they'll stop making plays that are dangerous, realizing they're not allowed to make that play. The only plays you should make on defense are the plays where you're in front of the player prior to that final step or move.